We used to go to these tournaments, and you have to stay on like the package for the international tournaments. But as soon as you could get off the package, we'd get off the package because it was way cheaper to get off the package.
Yeah.
So we'd end up in some hostel somewhere in the middle of nowhere, being like, how do we get here? Or on some bus somewhere, you know? But it was fun. It was an adventure, yeah. And I remember, specifically me and Emily Bolton wandering around this town in Slovenia thinking, what are we doing here? Like, what is going on?
Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Serving Up Trouble. This is episode 4 of the podcast about everything women's table tennis. I'm your host, Chloe Ireland, and my adventures in table tennis this week. I've been thinking a lot about different environments and how they affect my game. So sometimes I find that if it's a warmer hall or there's like condensation in the air, the ball tends to drop off the bat, or if it's, very cold. I actually think I play a bit better in a colder hall, but the ball does seem to hang and becomes a bit more bouncy. And I'm not quite sure why this happens, but it's definitely something that I've started to notice the more I get better. When you start to notice those little tiny differences, those little tiny details in what affects your game and how to adapt for those different environments. So I think that's something that I'm going to really pay attention to and practice when I'm next at an event, just thinking about the hall and how do I slightly tweak my game for the environment around me so that I can play at my best. My guest this week, I am so excited for my guest this week. She is a 2 times national champion and a bronze medal winner at the Gold Coast Commonwealth Games in 2018. I think you always remember when you're a junior who those players were that were at the top of their game while you were coming through the rankings. And I think this lady especially was a real inspiration to me just because of the way she played. I think her aggressive forehand heavy style, that was something that I really wanted to emulate as a cadet and then as a junior coming through. So it was a real pleasure getting to talk to her. So settle in, we've got a really nice long episode today as I chat with Maria Tsaptsinos. I got so much to ask you. I think it's going to be
Hopefully
a good chat.
I have all the answers.
I think it's going to be a really good chat. One of my first jobs actually when I started working at Table Tennis England, a couple of years ago, was literally to create a montage of some of your highlights for you leaving.
Yeah.
So I was
I've seen that montage.
I know, I'm so sorry. But it was
sent them some better points there.
I thought some of them were great. Honestly, I was like, I'm going to enjoy this job because I really enjoyed watching some of your nationals points. There was one where you swap hands in the middle of a rally against Denise, and I was like,
that is one of my favourite points,
that's
to be fair.
Good. That is a bit good.
Yeah.
It was quite impressive.
No, that was good.
Yeah, and what I've always liked is you're so passionate. You're quite showman a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people might think that's arrogance. I don't think it was. I think that's just my personality.
Have you always been quite a confident person?
Ooh, yes and no. I'd say on the outset, quite confident. I think my Greek heritage probably plays into that, and my father's outlandishness probably plays into that as well. But yeah, I think you've got to be confident in sport, and anyone who's not probably doesn't do that well, because you've got to back yourself, believe in yourself, and, go for it. And I think I always just did that, and I always gave 110% anytime I got on the court.
Absolutely. Well, I remember umpiring you and kind of seeing that. You were some of my best
Screaming.
games to umpire. Yeah. Oh no, I love it. I love it because it's that's what people want to watch. When people get passionate and things like that. So I always really enjoyed those games.
Yeah.
But we're gonna go back when you first started. I think you were about maybe 11, was it?
Yeah, 10, 11.
10, 11.
Yeah.
And Kingfisher.
Yeah,
was
so
your club.
Kingfisher was my club. I didn't actually start at Kingfisher.
Okay.
I started. So, Kingfisher, very renowned club. Reading, where I grew up, very renowned for table tennis back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it still holds some sort of regard in the table tennis world. But no, I think it was just raining one day at primary school. And there was a coach there, Graham Outram, and he was a coach, and he would go into loads of the local primary schools. It was raining one day, and I think a few of my mates were like, yeah, let's just go to the table tennis club. And I think I went, and he was like, you're pretty good. there was a couple of us around that age, that time, who kind of all came through the system together, a couple from the same primary school as me.
Nice.
And it went from a Friday lunchtime to a Monday after school, and then he went, okay, well, if you're interested, you're pretty good, go to Kingfisher. And that's where it kind of kicked off then, went through the doors at Kingfisher and then spent probably every other day at Kingfisher for the
and she never left.
Yeah, still there.
Mentally.
Yeah, mentally. Luckily, they changed venues about 5 years in, so I've got 2 different versions of Kingfisher in my head. But and I just went from there. Really, it went from practicing there. I turned up the first time in one of those bats from like JJB back in the day, and Pete Charters was like, what is that? And I was like, oh, and like none of my family have ever played table tennis. None of them really knew anything about table tennis, so we had no sort of background or knowledge on what makes a good table tennis player, what the international scene was like, anything like that. And it went from that to 1 stars to 2 stars to 4 stars to nationals. Yeah. And it kind of just spiraled from there, and here I am too many years later.
And were you always like a sporty kid as well? So was it like, I mean, when you kind of caught the table tennis bug when you were little, were there other things that like grabbed your attention at the time as being like an active kid? Yeah.
Definitely. There was a lot of football. My family's pretty football mad. Nice. So there was a lot of football. I was actually at one point, I want to say in like the development squad for Reading Football Club, which was pretty good. And then obviously that just falls to the side when you win your first national title. And at the same time, I started with tennis. I was a county level tennis player as well, which was very sporty. So that probably helped as well. And I think that competitiveness and that sort of side of my life was already in me at that point by the time I'd picked up a table tennis bat.
Yeah, and did you kind of like, did something change when you were younger, when you're like, oh, I'm quite good at this, I'm winning matches? Did people start taking notice of you? Was it quite a slow burn, or did you notice quite quickly that you were, kind of winning groups and winning titles and things like that?
I don't know. I think it was like half slow, half fast.
Right.
It feels fast at the time. I think I won my first national title under 14. Mm-hmm. And I think I hadn't even played any under 10s or under 11s or under 12s. I think maybe I went in at under 12s. But for some people, they've been playing since they were like 6, So it's completely different. So in that sense, it was probably quite a fast progression through. But yeah, I think it just kind of spiraled, and then it just happened, and then it just continued happening. And I think people in Reading at Kingfisher took notice. So I was training a lot, and then they could see that I was, committed as well. I think that's one thing that you have to be as well, because, there's so many ups, so many downs.
Yeah. And
you've got to just, go through them all. And you've got to stick with it. So many times on the way, I remember being picked up from school. My dad would be like, oh, you got training tonight? And I'd be like, nope. And he'd be like, well, you do. And, by the time that 10-minute journey was over, because luckily Kingfisher wasn't too far away, I'd be like, all right, okay, I've got training. And it really helped. We had like quite a good cohort at that time in the southern region. So there was lots of us playing. Yeah. So, I mean, lifelong friends that have been made there, still speak to a lot of them now. So, yeah, that also helps. Because when you're young, if you feel like you're missing out on some aspects of your life, having friendships in table tennis and stuff like that doesn't really mean that you're missing anything,
Yeah. I'd say that's like one of the tricky things. Like, I know that like when I started playing as a cadet, like I never, like, it's like, oh, I'm giving up another weekend that I'm not with my friends. You get this like FOMO of it. I mean, they weren't inviting me anywhere anyway, but like in my head I was like, oh, all of these friends and these parties that I could be going to, and I'm here at a 2-star losing. So it's difficult. So those friendships are quite important.
Yeah,
who was in that cohort that was like kind of coming up with you at that time?
Well, notably Liam McTiernan.
Nice, yeah.
So he still plays. He's still out and about there. And he's getting married this year, so I'm going to his
Congratulations.
stag do.
Nice.
So that's pretty good, you know.
Yeah, that's
a friendship
that is a true friend.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure how 2 nights in Krakow will go for me, but there's a lot of table tennis people going to that.
Nice.
You know, Gabriel Achampong still playing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I remember Joe Pilkington. Liam obviously had a brother, Daniel. At the time we had the Knowleses, Megan and Jared Knowles. They were coming up and playing.
Mm-hmm.
In the southern region, we had like Tressa Armitage. Hannah Hicks was in that region, I think, for a little bit. And yeah, Rachel Trevero. There were lots of good players around the area, and there was a lot of competition, you know, even to get into the southern region squad and stuff like that. So I was surrounded by a lot of good players, and there was a lot of good training happening, which obviously helps when you're trying to improve.
Yeah. A lot of people have like conflicting ideas about this, but like how many like women and girls were there coming up in the club? Was it like, did you notice that at all? Was there anything that you like, if there wasn't that many, did that feel like a loss, or were you quite happy like playing with the lads and kind of coming up with lads? Because it seems to vary. Really.
I think I was happy playing with the lads. But I think there were a lot of women at that time playing in, and I think maybe I was fortunate in that sense that a lot of them were pushing for, you know, national squad and stuff. So I was surrounded by a lot of strong players, especially women, which I think for a lot of regions probably wasn't the case, but at that time it was pretty strong, and I think that probably helped as well, because when you play in teams with them, and then obviously, but then and at the same time I made a lot of friends in the national team who were women and stuff, so girls at the time, we were like 12 but so that really helped as well, because then they were just friends, you know, that I could hang out with.
Yeah, you're still friends with Tintin as well.
Still friends with Tins.
I heard you, was it at the Nationals, the first Nationals where you weren't competing, and I like heard you shout, like screaming.
Yeah. I mean, she is probably one of my best friends. We've done a lot of life together so far. Yeah. And still really good friends. Schedules mean that we probably can't see each other as much as we can. Yeah. But I mean, that's what WhatsApp's, that's what WhatsApp's
busy
for.
People. That's exactly.
I mean,
busy life.
Emily Bolton, Lois. That was my kind of. We were a little four that used to go to a lot of stuff together, and I still speak to all of them regularly and try and see as many of them as I can. I mean, Emily's out in France now, playing out there and living out there, and Lois is in London, so I get to see a lot more of her. I was very happy when she got there, and obviously Tins is still trying to become a doctor. I mean, she will become a doctor, and I know she will. She's a very strong person.
I'd love to do an episode of Tintin just to ask her how the hell she manages her like diary. Honestly, I've got so much respect for how she does it.
I can't speak on her behalf, but I think it's chaos, and it's a lot of sacrifice, a lot of. I mean, she loves it, and you've got to love it if you're going to do that. So, and she's a very good table tennis player, so that helps.
Talking of like loving it. Was there any time that you felt really kind of challenged by, you know, playing table tennis as much as you were? Was there any point where you kind of wanted to stop? And when you did, what kind of got you through those kind of like phases? Because I think we lose a lot of like women and girls around like the 16 age group just before they go to college, and then like the 18 plus age group when they go to uni, and obviously they've got other life aspirations and things. There's not much you can do about that. But also it's kind of like, how do we keep girls interested, or is there enough there to kind of keep them in the sport? So I'm just interested from your perspective, if you ever had to battle with that a little bit.
I think it was a constant battle. I think there's ups and downs. There's selections that don't go your way. There are selections that do go your way. And obviously I'm speaking from more of a national side of it, where, there were a lot of politics involved, and there probably still is. I've removed myself from that now. But when selections didn't go my way, anything like that, I think it was a hard battle. It's a mental battle, and I remember probably one of the toughest times for me personally. As I said, it was quite smooth in the sense that I had so many strong players around me at the time, kind of, and I always say I don't know, but I think it was off the back of 2012.
Yeah.
that's when I started, and I saw they still had a huge engagement. They kind of still maybe had a national setup in Sheffield, I think, at the point. So we did a lot of training camps up there. A lot of it was still funded by Table Tennis England. So that cost was probably obviously gone for my parents. They just used to stick us on a train and we'd go off for a week, you know. So a lot of that probably helped. I mean, yeah, and then obviously throughout school, I had Kingfisher right around the corner, so it wasn't exactly like I was big time commuting anywhere. I mean, if you don't have a club near you, probably a lot of players have to struggle to do that and access to the sport. But again, I had a lot of strong players on my doorstep, I was very lucky to have. And then I went off to uni and I went to Nottingham, and at that time it was the national centre. So it was kind of a smooth transition into that. My first year at uni was quite a tough one.
Yeah.
I think that summer I'd just broken into the senior squad, and I'd just gone to Russia for the European Championships. Right. I want to say, I can't remember.
Okay.
September 2015.
We'll wiki it later.
Which is 10 years ago.
It's madness.
That scares me.
I'm still scared at how long ago 2012 was, to be honest.
Yeah.
I can remember it so vividly, that year in my brain,
too.
that I'm always shocked. I'm like, that was over 10 years ago.
Yeah. But that push into the senior squad was actually really good. There were a lot of players still in the senior squad, women's senior squad. So I think for me, that drove me. Like, I was earning my place. I needed to get that selection. I needed to do that. And then I did that. I played really well. I was playing really good table tennis. And then it kind of fell off the wagon when I went to uni. I mean, I don't know about anyone else, but I found that first term at uni really tough mentally. I'd obviously been away from home lots because of table tennis, but living away from home was pretty tough, I found. And yeah, obviously you want to fit in. So I was going on quite a lot of nights out, was enjoying myself, and I'd basically been selected for the world champs in Kuala Lumpur. And yeah, I got dropped. Yeah, which wasn't great.
Yeah.
And I think at that point I thought, is it worth it?
Yeah.
Is it? And then, I mean, I just looked back and I thought, my parents have given so much to this. I've given so much time. Just kind of snap out of it, Maria, and just, you got to work hard. And I did work hard for the next, I mean, I still went out. I still had a great time.
Yeah. You were at uni. I think you're allowed, you know.
I know, but I was also like the third player in the England squad at that point. So I was also still, you know, had to train. I was regularly training. I was doing more training than early mornings. I was doing more training than I was probably studying, to be fair, or doing any of that, because it was right on my doorstep. Again, very, very handy. But that was a challenging. I think that I got deselected maybe in the February or something like that. Yeah, that was a tough 6 months.
Yeah,
that was a tough 6 months. But I got back in the squad. I think my mentality was, they can find every reason they want not to put me in the squad. I've got to find them every reason to put me in the squad where they have no option, basically. Yeah. And I kind of gave them no option. I think I won nationals and stuff like that. I don't know if that was the year I won. I can't remember, but maybe under 21s. And I think I didn't really give them any option other than to put me in the squad. Otherwise, they were going to get questions as to why I wasn't there.
You made yourself undisputable,
basically. And I just said, okay, my results kind of have to now speak for themselves, and I just need to do it. And I did it, which is great. And then, that was probably the toughest time.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for kind of like, you know, some of our England squad members maybe going through that period now? You know, they're kind of at the stage where they might be getting selected, they might not be getting selected. You know, how do you find that drive, that kind of like, make yourself undisputable? You've got to keep going, and you've got to, you know, find the love for it still, I guess.
Yeah, it's tough. I think you really do have to have a love for it. And I think it is going to be tough, and it's never straightforward, and there are going to be coaches who maybe don't like you, but coaches who do like you. And I think things change. It's constantly evolving, and I think if you make your results speak for themselves, then those selections will come and those things will happen. But you've got to put in the hard work, and if you don't think it's worth it, well, no one else can really change your mind. You kind of have to want it ultimately at the end of the day. You can't do it for anyone else but yourself. And yeah, it's tough. It's tough because I know a lot of people who probably gave it up when they probably didn't want to. But, you know, that's the way of life. Now they're on to maybe bigger and better things, you know?
Yeah.
But it's a journey. It's definitely a journey. There are highs, lows, all sorts that happen. But I think for the majority, for me, it was all positive. I had really good friends. We had a lot of laughs. We were traveling the world. The opportunity, I've traveled to so many different countries. I've done so many different things, which I would probably never have done.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to go to tournaments. I mean, it was just fun. But I guess I was very lucky. I had people around me. We had a squad. We had a team. And we used to go to these tournaments, and we said you have to stay on like the package for the international tournaments. But as soon as you could get off the package, we'd get off the package because it was way cheaper to get off the package.
Yeah.
So we'd end up in some hostel somewhere in the middle of nowhere, being like, how do we get here? Or on some bus somewhere, you know? But it was fun. It was an adventure, yeah. And I remember, specifically me and Emily Bolton wandering around this town in Slovenia thinking, what are we doing here? Like, what is going on? But we were having fun, you know? It was just like, we found a nice place to eat. I would never have gone there otherwise, you know?
Yeah.
And, stuff like that. I've been to all sorts of countries. Russia, Japan, China. Me and Lois did a month in China between our AS levels and our A levels. We were in calligraphy classes and we were learning the language, and Lois was getting so angry at me because I wasn't paying any attention. And then we'd have to stand up and sort of present and speak. And Lois had been really concentrating in this class, and I'd just not paid any attention. And we got up to speak, and she was really trying, and I just got up and read it. And she was like, how did you do that? Like, that's crazy. And I was like, I don't know. Like,
natural
I was
ability.
like, I don't even know what I'm saying. But I just listened to him and just repeated it.
You were secretly bilingual the entire
I
time.
definitely wasn't. But we were like, you know, going around the Chinese markets and, you know, stuff that we'd never have done, and eating all sorts of food at such young ages, just like having so much fun. But probably not real, like it was hard work. We were up every morning, you know, 7 a.m. runs and then straight to training, and we were getting beaten by these like 11-year-olds that we were playing against. It was quite soul depressing, soul destroying at some points.
Yeah.
But then, you know, you'd just do it again. And you'd get up and you'd keep doing it. And I don't know, it was just fun. Like, we'd watch movies, and I don't know if the digital age maybe kind of means people are more on their phones and less sociable, but we didn't really have it. I don't think I could really speak to my parents that much when we were out there or anything like that. And that makes me sound old, but I mean, we had phones. I don't know if we had iPhones.
Yeah.
So we used to play cards for hours and hours. And I remember all the like youth club, youth, England youth sort of camps that we'd go on. We'd play hours. It'd be like, right, your room tonight. And literally there'd be like 12 girls in there, all playing cards. We play spoons for hours. You know that game Spoons? With all the spoons in the middle?
No.
And you've got to get 3 of the same, and then you leap for a spoon.
I've never played
You've
this
never
game
played that game?
Okay.
And it used to be carnage because we used to be jumping because there was always one spoon less than there were people. So then you were out, and then you go down again.
Yeah.
And it would be carnage. We'd all be jumping all over each other because there was a bunch of competitive girls, basically.
Yeah, literally like going at each other. If it was not table tennis, we're going to go at this game of spoons.
But for hours. Like, we'd just do that for hours, and we'd sit and chat. And like, I think our favourite things to do now, like if I meet up with them, is, maybe I'm just getting old. I don't know. I don't feel old.
You're not old.
I feel 15, but definitely not 15. And I feel like our favourite thing to do now is probably just like, you know, put our phones away and just go for a walk, or we'll go out for dinner and stuff. But those things kind of just like...
Those stuck with you.
Yeah, they've stuck with me, and those are the things that also accompany the winning and accompany it's more than just you're playing a sport to win. It was my life, really. Like, they were my best friends, and I had friends and I have a life outside of table tennis, but at that point, that was it.
Yeah. No, and it's nice that you had like that community around you. Like,
And I do think, like, if that community, I don't really know what the setup is like, but I do know that towards the end of my junior years, people were having to start to pay more for things, and like the camps and stuff like that. And I think that can take a toll because it's not a cheap sport to play.
No.
Especially if you don't have any sponsorship or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, maybe people are thinking about it more now. We used to go into Premier Inns, and none of our parents used to have to be there. They'd just throw us in this Premier Inn outside Sheffield, and we'd all be there, and the coaches would be there, and we'd have dinner all together, you know. But it felt like a real camp, and it felt like, and I know for certain that towards like my senior end of my playing career, like we didn't have that really. Kind of, we had to make that ourselves. That wasn't there, and I think that could be quite hard if you're a young girl wanting to play, and maybe it's not that same camaraderie around each other.
It becomes a bigger sacrifice, doesn't it?
It definitely does. It definitely does, because it's now like I'm missing out on this that's happening in, let's say, your normal life, your non-sporting life. And it's like, but for what? Like, what's going on? Where's the investment in me? And I felt investment in me when I was growing up, and I felt like I was improving and I was getting better, and those things spur you on, and I was winning. Yeah. And that always helps. Yeah. So if you've not got that, I can imagine it's quite tough, especially, I mean, I could sit on my phone for half an hour and convince myself that every single person in this world is having a better time than I am.
We can all do that.
Exactly.
That's a skill a lot of people possess. Yeah.
But they're probably not.
Yeah.
But I think in the digital world that we've got now, and the accessibility to message your friends and do things like that, things take over your life a little bit more. Yeah. Like, we just completely removed ourselves from it. Like, we couldn't really... Yeah, you might send one... Table tennis bubble. Yeah, we were in a table tennis bubble. Yeah. You could send one, like, BBM, you know, like, back in the day, like, broadcast it to everyone.
BBM is a flashback. Oh, my God.
But I remember it.
I remember BBM.
But I remember, like, being on the camps, and we'd, like, broadcast messages, and we'd, like, try and go on each other's phones. But, like, you'd get, like, 2 texts a day or something. Yeah. And we'd, like, be begging the hotel staff to let us on their free Wi-Fi. And they were like, no, you have to pay for it. And we'd be like, no, give us the Wi-Fi. You know? I don't know when we did our schoolwork or anything, to be honest.
But you learnt Chinese, so...
Lurch will be mad at me for that.
And now it's time for our tip of the week. Who's there this week?
Hi, I'm Matthew Porter, head coach at Worthing Table Tennis Club. My advice is don't be scared to miss. Play your shots, play your game. Use it as a learning opportunity. If you hit a shot on the table and it goes on, you don't think about it. Whereas if you miss, try and think about it, see in a positive, was the shot correct? Is it just that small adjustment to make and learn from?
Thank you, Matt. Talking a bit more about like your technical ability and your playing style, you know, as you were coming through, you were always quite an aggressive attacking player. Was that right from the cadets? Was that kind of a style that you went in with, or did that kind of come in later? Was that something that clicked for you later?
No, I think that was right from the offset. I think that was my style. Forehand dominant. Yeah. Just running around the table, going crazy. Yeah. I think that was because if I ever watch any of the stuff, the videos of me back in the day, I think I play very, very similarly. Right. I just got better. Well, a little bit. Sometimes I watch videos when I'm 17 and I'm like, God, that's when I was at my best. But I'm like, actually, maybe not. So, yeah, I think that was how I was going to play. And I think that was just me, Maria.
Nice.
Yeah.
It was built in.
Yeah, definitely.
You generate quite a lot of power in your shots as well. I was kind of like looking at some of your like you know hitting rallies kind of like across the table, that forehand dominance and things like that. I mean, it's quite hard when you're younger to kind of generate power. I think that's something that maybe like once you get a bit bigger and you're not like doing this over the table, that's something that you kind of develop. But yeah, was there anything that you kind of used to help practice that?
So definitely. So I had a coach Brian Halliday, who kind of made me fall in love with the sport, because he could see me for who I was. And he was like, this girl is not going to sit here and play backhand to backhand and forehand to forehand. This girl doesn't want that.
Mm-hmm.
So we used to have all sorts of games.
Yeah.
All sorts of games. When I was started to play, he said, okay, the only way I'm going to keep this girl engaged, and she's good enough to, so like, let's keep her engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And he just used to put cups on the table.
Yeah.
And he used to time me. How quickly can you hit all these cups off? You need to get them all off. They can't like be just on the table on their side. We used to do that for hours and hours. Stuff like that, I think, just it was so unconventional. And maybe that's my style was unconventional, and maybe that's why I was never number one in the world. But I think those worked for me. I was never into the regimented.
The drills.
I mean, obviously, as I got older, you have to do the drills.
Yeah. You can't. You can't avoid them.
Hit cups off a table the whole time.
Oh, unfortunately.
But I think that sort of started it. Like, he was just like, hit them off, because he just wanted me to have fun.
Yeah.
Because if you're not having fun, then none of it's fun. You know, like, what's the point if you're not having fun?
Yeah.
So I think it all started from that, and then obviously when it spiraled and I got better and better, you had to do the harder, more monotonous exercises. But still, my favourite was always loop to loop. I'd always be like, loop to loop. They'd be like, all right, loop to loop. Or be like, lob, and you just smash at me. Okay, brilliant. No, I have fun. But you know, that's what we used to do. It used to just have to be fun.
Yeah.
If it wasn't fun, I don't think I would have stayed around. I don't think I would have been engaged. I think I would have been like, this is boring. I'm in some sort of army camp.
Yeah.
And that's not very fun. And I think maybe, I don't know what the setup's really like now, but I think for people coming through, coaches need to make sure it's fun.
Yeah.
We never had boring warm-ups. We'd be playing football, or we'd be throwing a ball at each other, you know, trying to get people out. We'd play stuck in the mud. But these were happening on England camps when I started. Yeah. Like, we'd have afternoons where they'd be like, okay, no table tennis afternoon, we'll go and play rounders. Because first of all, that built team morale. Mm-hmm. And second of all, it was fun. People wanted to do that. People didn't want to be in the hall. Obviously, we used to have to run laps and do stuff like that as well. But instead of that, they went, okay, well, what, that cat and mouse game where you used to start at two different ends. Yeah. You used to run around and try and catch, but you'd be in two teams. Yeah. And you'd always... I remember that. I used to love that game. Yeah. I'm not a sprinter. I'm not fast at all. I was actually so slow. But the adrenaline of it used to just get me going. And that's what used to hype me up and used to get me going, the adrenaline. And I think that was fun. That was something different. And I think it was, if you want to take it super, super seriously, you can still do that kind of stuff, but you've got to put in the hours of the monotonous backhand middle, backhand wide, you know, all that sort of stuff. And when I moved to Italy, it was very much like that. But they still made us have, they saw the fun side of it as well. Yeah. But you still had to put the hours in, and you still got to persevere. Yeah.
It's been a few years now since you've kind of, you know, retired, although you're not old enough. Saying retired to you sounds wrong. You know? But how have you found kind of adjusting to civilian life, as it were, kind of coming out of doing all of that and kind of having, you know, a separate life and a new career, which is very exciting for you? But
yeah, it was good. Mm-hmm. I think COVID kind of helped me a little bit. Yeah. Because I moved to Italy straight after uni and played for 2 years. And I kind of fell out of love with it a little bit towards the end of my second year. We moved locations in my second year. There was a lot of things going on. One of my best friends, who was Chiara, who was living in Italy, she was injured a lot of the time. So I didn't have that much social network around me while I was living there. There were people there, but she was kind of...
It makes it hard when you've not got like a... Yeah.
And I don't think I was playing that well. And I think I just thought, this is not fun. Mm-hmm. And then I basically went to Mexico and I injured my foot. And as a result, I came back home early 2020 to get some physio on it. and I just never went back
Right.
because COVID happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was kind of a moment to be like, okay, well, I don't have any obligation to play now. And I did. I played downstairs in my parents' house. We got a table on a carpeted room. It's a bit strange, but we had a robot and I was playing, and I was trying to keep up with it once my foot had got better. But it was kind of on my terms at that point. Like, I wasn't bound by any pressure. There were no tournaments happening, so I could kind of do what I wanted. And then I did a master's after that for a year, which kind of ticked over. I wasn't playing that much, but I was maintaining my level. And no nationals had happened that year in 2020, I don't think. So I was just,
we were.
just playing. And then kind of when everything opened up again in 2021, then I kind of was like, right, Birmingham is just around the corner. I've got this master's under my belt. I could probably make a go of this again. So then from that September of 2021, I kind of just gave my all to it. I said, I'll give my all for Birmingham, and then we'll see.
Okay.
And then I moved back up to Nottingham for 6 months. I was training a lot. I think I was in a much better headspace because I'd had a little break from it.
Yeah.
And I had a job at the same time, so I was working side by side with training.
You had something else kind of going on.
Yes, something else going on.
And it was your own goal as well, in a
Yeah.
way. Like, you were reaching for something.
Yeah.
Like, you had something you wanted to achieve, but it was your goal. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, we'll get to Birmingham.
Yeah, and then I thought in my head, Birmingham was probably going to be the last thing I played.
Right.
And it was. I've not played anything since. But in some way, I think that tainted me mentally, because I
Right.
think I went in to Birmingham. I was actually probably playing the best table tennis I played. I was in the fittest I'd ever been. I remember that for those 6 months, everyone kept being like, your legs look quite muscly there. I'd be like, oh, thanks. I'm actually working out now, like, I'm actually going for this.
Yeah.
So I was in very good physical shape, and I
Yeah.
was training really hard. But I think mentally, because I knew it was the last thing I was going to play, I think I put a lot of pressure on that.
Yeah.
And I think I was very overwhelmed when we got there.
Yeah.
That this chapter could be ending.
Mm,
And I think that did not help the way I played.
right.
And I probably didn't have the best send-off tournament I was going to want to have, but that's life.
Yeah.
And while we were at Birmingham, I must have applied for a job before we got into the village. But then when we were at Birmingham, I got called to say I got a job. So then it was like, oh, right, okay then. I'll start in September. So I went on holiday for a month and then moved to London. Well, got a job in that September and then moved to London in that November.
Right.
And that's been my life
The rest
ever
is history.
That's been my life ever since, really. Yeah.
So I was going to ask, have you picked up a bat since? I mean, you've kind of answered it as you've not played much, but have you gone to any of the clubs in Reading? Had a little bit of a knock?
So I've been to Kingfisher maybe a handful of times. I think that I actually don't know. I think maybe 5 times.
Yeah.
Since Birmingham, I've picked up a bat.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I do keep up with it.
Yeah.
I see some results online. Obviously, Tins is still playing, so
Yeah.
I check in on that. Watch her matches when I can. So I feel like I'm involved in that sense, mainly just through Tins, to be honest.
Yeah.
But
living precariously.
yeah. But yeah, it's been a bit of a change.
Yeah.
It's been a bit of a life shift. I don't think I ever really... I think this is why people need psychologists, 'cause
Yeah.
you try not to think about it, and then you're 2 years later and you're like, oh, I never really actually thought about the fact that I was stopping something that for the first, last 14 years of my life has been pretty much everything to me. So maybe I should think about that a little bit more instead of just jumping from one thing to the next thing. But yeah, it's been more than that. August 2022.
Yeah.
So coming up this year will be 3 years since
Wow.
I've played competitively, which is crazy. It's gone so fast. But yeah, I'm lucky. I've got a lot of friends in London.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a good little support network there. which is great. And yeah, just life moves on, doesn't it? On to the next thing and on to the next chapter in life. And I look back with very fond memories of it.
I'm glad.
Can't say that it was all bad. Yeah. And I mean, as I said, I always said it gave me so much. It gave me a passion. It gave me friendship. It gave me, a goal. It gave me so many achievements. It gave me travel. And I think we underplay it sometimes. Anytime I meet someone, they're like, you realise you've had quite a cool life? And I'm like, oh yeah, maybe actually. They're like, most people haven't done what you've done. And I'm like, yeah, but that person's earning way more money than I am. Because now I'm in a different phase of my life where it's all about career goals. And I'm like, oh, I actually didn't get a proper job until I was 25. And everyone's like, what? And I'm like, maybe. But I know, so I've been at ITV since that September 2022. Just
enjoying it.
Enjoying it, yes, yeah. It's very enjoyable.
Thanks for that nugget.
It's a job. I love it. We work on the sport. We go around up and down the country. It kind of gives me a little bit of that table tennis life.
Yeah.
But in work life, everyone I work with is super lovely, and just follow the sport up and down the country, really.
Which is very cool.
Yeah, which is very cool. And I think, again, it's one of those things where you think now, and I feel like people can always look, the grass is greener over there, the grass is greener over there. And I think what I do is pretty cool. And I enjoy it. So hopefully I stick around with it for a little bit longer. But we'll see. We'll see maybe what the next chapter is.
Just kind of like a bit of a question to end then, kind of coming into the media side of it, because obviously you travel around, you look at a lot of the sports content that kind of, more from an ITV side, but in general I'd say you're a bit of a sports fan, you like watching it and things like that. How would you kind of say, I always think that since the Euros, women's sport has got more exposure. I'm quite interested to see how you kind of see, how has that grown, and do you think there's anything that can be done or should be done to kind of improve the profile of that? Just women's sport in general.
I think women's sport in general is on the up and up. The Euros definitely was a catalyst for that, and that was great, and the whole country got behind it. I hope that we're not... Obviously, we've got the Euros coming up, which is on ITV this summer.
Other channels are available.
I might be out in Switzerland. But... yeah, from the media landscape, ITV is a big champion for women's sport. We do a lot of women's sport, which is really great, especially the football. I hope that other sports start to get a little bit more recognition. I mean, all it really takes is, I think a lot of the time, is just one name to kind of stick out, and then people sort of rally around it. I mean, in the rugby... I'm going to butcher her name now.
Was it Iona?
Yeah.
I follow her on Instagram. I love her.
She's so cool.
She's so cool.
I know.
The interview she did about, was it imposter syndrome? She's like, I don't have that. I deserve to be here. And I'm like, yes!
But, she's so cool.
So cool. Yeah.
And I think characters like that are so good for sport, because they're just so authentically themselves.
Yeah.
But they're also saying, well, women are strong. Women can be amazing athletes.
Yeah.
We need to showcase this a little bit more. And I think, it's on the up, and I hope it stays going on the up, and I hope... Don't know if they're going to win the Euros again, but we can see.
Fingers crossed. It's a different team this year. It's going to be interesting. It's a very different team this year.
But I hope that the media landscape sticks on with women's sport, because it's very interesting, and it's completely different to men's sport. You can't compare them, and I always say that to people. I say, you can't watch women's sport expecting it to be men's sport. When we're physically not the same humans, we're not built the same.
Yeah.
So don't expect the same things, but women can achieve absolutely phenomenal things, and they do, and they constantly do. And I hope that lots of media outlets continue following them, and I think it should be good, hopefully. Hopefully with table tennis as well.
As I say, like, between the two of us, surely one day we can get some table tennis on ITV.
Well, everyone at ITV always says that to me. They're like, so when are we getting the table tennis? I'm like, just you wait. One day you'll see it on the rotor and you'll be like, classic Maria.
That's it.
Because they love it. Everyone at my work loves that I used to play table tennis and that they're real champions of that.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and they just want to... Yeah, they want to showcase as many sports as they can, I think, at ITV. So, and I think BBC the same. I think getting it out there and getting people to watch it.
One day.
Yeah. One day the table tennis.
Yes,
potentially.
One day. Potentially. Fingers crossed.
I mean, there's more tournaments coming. Obviously, you've got the World Champs.
Yeah.
In 2026.
I'm hoping that helps a bit with some of the exposure kind of coming
and
through.
Obviously, they're hosting. They had the Manchester feeder last year and they've got it again this year.
Yep.
Stuff like that can
exciting
all be...
stuff.
Yeah, and I think definitely in the terms of just table tennis media, there is definitely more exposure. I mean, I don't know what the politics, if there are any around like world table tennis, but I think what they've done in terms of visually for the sport and putting it out there is unbelievable.
Good. Yeah.
I think even the fact that I was watching a table tennis match, I can't remember what one it was, and there was a gap between the games, and normally you stare at a blank screen and there's nothing going on. And it's just like got a list of the matches. And this time there was an interview that was played out halfway through, and I thought, oh, that's interesting.
Bit of a step up.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I'll stick around. Like, I didn't really care about the next match, but like I'll stick around to watch this interview because that's pretty cool. A little in depth into one of the players and stuff like that. And I think the exposure of the table tennis landscape is getting bigger and broader. And I think everyone always says, oh, I love table tennis, Oh, watch it then, please. Watch it. But yeah, it's all about getting it out there and making sure that people know it's there. And it's,
I've been watching a lot of the American League, the major league.
Oh, yeah, really?
I'm actually, you know what, I'm enjoying the hell out of it.
Really?
It's so over the top.
It's so American.
It's so American. But they do this thing, like, you know what I was saying about the interviews in between? They mic up the coach and the player so you can listen in on their, like, discussions.
That's clever.
And I'm like, that's quite interesting. I like that angle.
They do that at, Champions League. I was watching Champions League on the weekend. I only managed to catch one of the matches. But when they were going to... in between the sets, I was like, normally you can hear little bits, but this time they had like a full microphone in front of one of the players while they were talking between sets, and I was like, well, first of all, this is all in German, so I have no idea what's going on. But I was like,
that's cool.
This is pretty cool. To have like
it's a good idea,
exposure to the players, and I think people love that. I think that's what's so good about women's football. I mean, it might change in a bit because it's becoming so popular. You need a bit more security protection, but the fact that before, you used to be able to go to a game and you'd be so close to the players and you feel like you could get to know them through their socials, through everything. And I think stuff like that is really good for a sport. And I think table tennis is starting to do that with stuff like this, getting to know people and getting to know all aspects of the sport.
Definitely. Thank you so much for talking to us.
That's all right. I've rambled on.
No, it's been good rambling. I've really enjoyed it. I'm going to finish off. Every episode, we do a champion of the week where I talk about an international player that's really exciting, someone that people can follow. So I've got somebody today that I'm going to talk about.
Am I going to know who this player is?
Yeah, you might do. I don't know. So I'm just going to do a little spiel. Okay. I've written down some facts about them. If you want to chip in, if you do know them. Our champion of the week this week is Xia Lian from Luxembourg. Born in 1963 in Shanghai, Xia Lian became the oldest Olympian to compete in the Games during the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. She beat that record last year competing in the Paris Olympics, where she was also one of the Luxembourg flag bearers. She's a left-handed penhold player, and her current ranking at the age of 61 is 66 in the world.
Nixie. Yeah, I know. Everyone knows who Nixie is. She's so famous. She's incredibly famous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only found out about her through Paris because she was the...
Oh, no. She is incredibly famous. She's like 62, isn't she? Something like that.
Oh, no, 61.
61, yeah.
Yeah, 61 age.
She is a phenomenal player. And she is... Yeah, she's a legend on the tour.
Yeah.
I never really knew her personally, but... She's a legend on the tour. Everyone knows who she is, and she's very, very famous in China from what I've heard.
Yeah,
and someone told me, or I read an article, maybe, that she's earning more money now than she's ever earned through sponsorship at the age of 61.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. But that's like, she's such a, because table tennis is, and always has been when I was growing up, a sport for all ages.
Yeah.
And we used to do a campaign at Kingfisher, and you used to put in the newspaper photos of older people, younger people, girls, boys, like 12-year-olds, and they'd just write the caption, could you guess which one of these is like a champion? Mm-hmm. And it'd be funny because it'd be all of us, different types of champions. But like, that is table tennis fundamentally. Yeah. Like, it is your local village hall, but it is also your world table tennis stage. Yeah. And she's, Nixie is so good.
I'm behind the times, man. Yeah, I've only woken up to her, like through Paris, because I saw an article about her. Yeah. And I just thought, like, that's amazing. And I looked at some clips of her.
She's so good.
Yeah,
she's beating the 20-year-olds, the 25-year-olds.
Yeah, and
she doesn't care.
She doesn't care. Yeah, literally. But I mean, recently I saw that on her socials that she also got like a partnership with Lululemon, the brand and things like that. And I'm just like, she's doing such great things for just like sport in general that you don't have to be. I think we've got in our head like, if someone says a female athlete, you get like this stereotypical maybe image in your head of what a female athlete is meant to be. And I just love that she's still kind of at the top of her game at the age that she is and getting all of these deals and kind of like living that life.
Yeah, she is.
I love that. So she's my champion of the week this week.
That's a good champion to have.
I'm glad you agree. Yeah. And that's the end of the episode. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to me. I've had a great time. And we'll be back next week with another episode. Bye.
Bit of ASMR for them.